Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show that helps you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two financial advisors from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, the co-founder, Tim Kulhanek, and partner, Jeremy Gove. We've got an important conversation for you today. The title of this episode is Two Clocks, One Future, Navigating Retirement When You and Your Spouse Are Not on the Same Schedule. Can you relate? You're going to want to hang with us to hear everything that Tim and Jeremy have to say about this important subject, which, guys, honestly doesn't get talked about enough. So I'm glad we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
How are you this week?
Doing good, thank you.
Good, Jeremy.
Yeah, doing well. Thank you, Kristen.
Awesome. Well, you know, it's interesting because as we think about an analogy for this, imagine you have two runners who are running the same race and they're training together and they're preparing together. But in a race, usually one person crosses the finish line before another. There's rarely a tie, right? That is often the case for married couples who are navigating the season of pre-retirement and retirement. A lot of times one spouse goes ahead and retires, but the other one may still be working every day. So how do you navigate this transition? And we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects to this that often don't get talked about enough. And interestingly enough, there was a study that came out that said, this was by Ameriprise Financial, and this was in 2024, more than 1/4 of working couples expect to retire at the same time, but only 11% of retired couples actually did. 62% retired more than a year apart. So this is why we want to talk about how to navigate this, because it can present some opportunities, but some unique challenges, right? So let's start with you, Jeremy. When one spouse retires and the other one is still bringing home a paycheck, what does that actually look like for their household budget? How can that impact cash flow?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and that's why we wanted to talk about this, because it can have a significant impact on income planning, especially. So the early retirement years are typically, even if you both retired at the same time, they're typically called your go-go years, because you realize I'm retiring, I've got all these things I want to go do, and I want to take trips, I want to go on, pursue hobbies, maybe I want to start fishing or playing golf or whatever it is. But when one person retires and the other one is still working, that person that's retiring still wants to do those things, but a lot of times their spouse isn't, obviously they're at work, they can't go with them. So when you're thinking about traveling, pursuing hobbies and spending more, or you end up spending more, not less, because you're still working, you're still doing those things. And there's another study that I actually, when we were putting this together in 2024, JP Morgan, they put together a study on spending. And this is just in retirement in general, but especially if there's a difference between the ages of the couple, spending temporarily increases in partially retired households. So we think, okay, I'm going to be able to cut some things out of my budget because now, my wife's not having to drive to work anymore, so we can save money on gas. And in your mind, you're thinking you're reducing your expenses, but in reality, you're actually increasing them. And so that budget, you end up drawing a little bit of money out of your retirement accounts a little faster than maybe you intended to. And that doesn't seem like it's a significant drain, because you're talking $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 here, $5,000 there. And before you know it, it's creating a significant impact on your retirement. And if you're not accounting for that ahead of time, it can be a big deal. So what we want to talk about, I guess, as we're thinking this through, is we want to have a clear withdrawal strategy. We obviously, a budget is an important piece of that, but a sequence plan for when am I going to take money out and at what accounts am I going to tap first, what order and how much am I going to take out, because that provides that guideline for the retired spouse. We already kind of have this plan in place on what we're going to do and what they want to do. And so everybody's on the same page.
Right. And there's a lot to coordinate to get on the same page.
Yeah.
So if the working spouse's income, the one who's still working, doesn't fully cover the joint expenses, what's the right way to start withdrawing from savings that they've jointly saved and accumulated together?
I think one of the important places to start is, okay, so if one spouse is retired, are they retired from their current role or their current career, but they're still going to do something on the side? because that could generate income, right? A lot of times, like I'm thinking of a few clients that come to mind, like maybe they're not doing what they did for 30 years. They don't have to clock into the office every day. They can kind of work at their own pace, their own speed, on their own schedule, but they still generate some income. So that helps close that what we call income gap, right? But we need to identify it, right? And we don't want to just shoot from the hip. Like we need to sit down and look at the budget and figure out where we're at. When you say the word budget, most people get a little bit of anxiety. They get a little anxious, like I don't want to be on a budget.
Right?
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's not call it a budget, let's call it a spending plan. And let's say, hey, look, I want to be able to spend comfortably, maybe this, maybe Tim, I don't have a budget. Right now we bring in $10,000 a month. I want to continue to bring $10,000 a month in. Okay, and is that after tax or before tax? Well, that's what we want to be able to spend. Are you spending that now? You can see where this goes, right? I want to get to the truth, right? That's why I ask a lot of questions. And then when we find out that what you're spending is really about $8,000 a month, but you want to be able to spend $15,000 a year on vacations. Okay, well then let's build this right. Let's not assume that you're spending, $9,500 a month. Let's assume that you're spending the $8,000 a month that you're spending, and then let's build in the vacation separate, okay? Because maybe there's a way that we can save on the side and build up a vacation fund, so that way when you do that vacation, depending on when it's in, we can be intentional about where we're taking it from and not just like, oh, we need it now, it's chaos, and let's just get it from the fastest place we can get it. So that's number one. Number two, Jeremy mentioned withdrawal sequencing. And this is, again, often overlooked, but I can't emphasize how important this is. Most people will just say, oh, well, I'll just take it from my taxable account first, then go to tax deferred, then tax free. And I agree, usually that makes the most sense. It doesn't always make the most sense. For example, let's say that one spouse has started drawing Social Security, the retired spouse, right? And that throws a new variable into the whole picture because now I have to count for taxes on my Social Security.
Correct.
And let's say that my provisional income is such that, I'm at the point where I potentially have to pay 85% on the next dollar out of Social Security. Well, if my, like just to make the example, I guess, simple, if my provisional income is $44,000, over $44,000 for a married couple filing jointly, that's where 85% starts to kick in, where the next dollar you take out will cause 85 cents of a Social Security dollar to become taxable. Well, if I just say, oh, well, I guess I'll take it from my tax deferred bucket because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. I rolled my 401k over to my IRA and I needed $10,000 just for easy math. Well, that's going to cause taxation not only just the $10,000, potentially $8,500 Social Security dollars become taxable. So a $10,000 withdrawal is causing taxation on $18,500.
Yep.
Income sequencing, the distribution phase, it matters. Where you're taking your money from, you want to be intentional about it. And the last thing I'll say that I think is really important is it needs to be systematic. You need to have a plan in place that puts you on some sort of a schedule because if all of it is just random distributions, like I think you'd agree, what we see is when people just say, oh no, Tim, I'll just call when I need money.
Right.
It's like, hey, I've gotten to know you really well because we talk every week. Right. You keep calling.
Right.
And you're taking gobs of money out.
Yeah.
If you haven't put guardrails in place, the bank of mom and dad hasn't been closed, you're still tugging the insurance, they're living in the basement, all of a sudden you're taking these big withdrawals because your expenses don't drop like they do for most people, and you don't have any, there's no direction. It's like as if you were driving with GPS and you missed the turn, and so you just abandoned the trip.
Right.
Well, no, we need to recalibrate, right?
Yes.
We can model and adjust. That's really what we do.
Right. Well, clearly we have a lot more to get to, but this has been helpful just to even understand for married couples who are retiring at different points in time, what you need to be aware of and prepared for. So if this is resonating with you, you don't have to navigate this important transition alone. The team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems would love to be able to connect with you and provide you with your very own complimentary written financial review. And you can schedule yours today by calling 866-256-7778. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to address several subjects, including the healthcare component to this. Stay with us to find out what Tim and Jeremy have to say about that when we come back.
As Americans, we strive for better, from a better house to a better career to a better life for our children and grandchildren. Better has become the American way. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? Yet a better retirement begins with a better financial plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and we're so glad you're spending this time with us today. If you are just tuning in, we are talking about married couples retiring at different points in time. As a result, there's some unique things that need to be prepared for, planned for, and navigated successfully. So next up on that list is the healthcare component to this equation. And of course, healthcare is one of the most urgent and important decisions when one spouse goes ahead and retires, because maybe both have been on, one employer healthcare plan. Maybe there's a gap. If they retire before 65, then there's this gap between hitting Medicare age. So we got to talk about all of this. So explain the changes and what folks need to be prepared for.
Yeah, so let's break it down to if the retiring spouse is before the age of 65, or if they're older than 65. And we use Medicare kind of as that dividing line, right? So for before 65, you really have a couple options. One, if you were covered under your health insurance plan from your employer, you could go on COBRA, which is the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985. That's what created COBRA. And COBRA is basically I can extend my insurance, and I think there is a limit. I think it's 3 years. You can go so many months and then up to 3 years. But COBRA is very, very expensive. And so that's usually not the best option, because I'm just continuing my insurance, but I'm paying for all of it. My employer is typically not contributing much to it. Coverage under the working spouse's employer plan is typically the best way to go, because I can, I know what their insurance is. I know how it works. And that's for people that have separate plans. Most of the time, you would have, as a couple, you'd be on the same healthcare plan anyway. But from a coverage standpoint, if you have a working spouse and they're covered under their employer plan, and then you can be added to theirs, depending on how much that additional expense would cost, you could do that, and that would cover that cost, right? The other thing that you could do, if you're still under the age of 65, you could do the marketplace, where you can start, you can go to the ACA, and the website, and determine, how much would it cost and all of that. That's another option. But typically, the most cost-effective option is remaining on the working spouse's employer plan. But now, if you're over the age of 65, if both of you happen to be over the age of 65, then you need to look at a couple of things before you make that call. It's, can I be covered under my employer's plan as the working spouse, and then also as the non-working spouse or the retired spouse? Is that an option? And it may or may not be. But if it is, we want to look at what does that cost. So again, this all comes back to what does our budget look like? What can we afford? Because maybe it makes sense to go ahead and go on Medicare Part B, and then you end up with some sort of a supplement to go along with that.
Well, let's talk now too about the retirement savings component to this, because folks probably want to still keep building. And I think a couple of the reasons why folks keep working, right, or at least one spouse continues to work, is the healthcare piece, right? A lot of people are like, no, I can't retire till I hit Medicare age. But then the other piece is, okay, maybe we don't feel like we have enough saved, or we're trying to save more, or we've entered the super catch-up contribution phase. If we're in our early 60s, you can put away even more money. So talk about this. I like that you're calling it the hybrid phase, right? When one spouse is working and one spouse is already retired. Talk about building retirement savings during that key time.
Yeah, it's an underutilized strategy where, let me take a step back. In order to put money away into like an IRA, you have to have one thing. What is that?
Earned income.
Earned income, right? So W-2 wages or net profit if you're self-employed. Well, when you retire, earned income goes away. That's the idea.
You're unemployed and you want to be for the first time.
Yeah, right? I mean, it'd be great if they want to keep you on the payroll and you don't have to go to work, but that's unfortunately, if you find that deal, let me know.
Right.
So, okay, I can't put money away. Well, not so fast. If you're married and you file a joint return, you actually can. You can do something called a spousal IRA. And it doesn't matter your age, other than the fact that if you're 50 or older, you still qualify for the catch-up amounts that we've talked about, where in 2026, instead of $7,500, you could do $8,600, and that's a traditional or a Roth IRA. Now, there are rules or kind of some different guidelines that you have to keep in mind. For example, if your spouse is still working and they're participating in a 401k, your ability to put money into a deductible IRA could be limited based off of your income. We also know that your ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA may be limited due to your income. Now, there's different things like the backdoor Roth strategy that we've talked about. Again, all of those are valid when we talk about the spousal IRA, as long as your spouse has enough income to account for that contribution. So if they're only making $5,000, well, you can only do $5,000, either one of you, but you can't both do $5,000. But if they're making $20,000 a year, you're both going to be able to max out the $8,600 because that's less than the 20 is more than the 17.2. I tell you this because I'm doing this now, right? Once baby number 3 rolled around, my wife stopped working as a teacher. She was teaching art, and now she stays at home and takes care of the babies.
It's a different kind of art, right?
Yeah.
It's a different art, right? But I'm still working, and so we make sure that we're maxing out her Roth IRA every single year, not based off of her earned income, but using the spousal Roth strategy. So again, people forget about this, but if you think about this, Kristen, like, okay, I'm not 50 or older yet, so it's $7,500, but compound that over a 30-year time period, and then the time value of the money, the eighth wonder of the world, if you will.
Yep, compound interest.
It can be a massive, massive difference between being prepared for retirement and working when you're 75.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference and it adds up very, very quickly. Real quick, as we wrap up this segment, Jeremy, the tax side of things, because this is the other stressor that folks have to navigate. There are tax consequences that come in this phase of life, a lot to navigate to do it successfully.
Yeah, so again, it's coming up with a strategy and executing it. But taxes can be a significant contributor to one spouse wanting to continue to work, maybe working part-time or doing other things. Social Security, if they start drawing Social Security early, which it may make sense to do that, but there's income thresholds that they have to meet. If they earn a certain amount of dollars, they'll end up losing part of their Social Security. So obviously they're limited as an individual. But you can also pull a lot, like Tim was talking about earlier, taking distributions out of IRAs, we can start pulling more of that Social Security income and making that become taxable. All it takes is $44,000 and you're paying tax on 85% of your Social Security benefit. And so that threshold actually hasn't changed since 1994. And so the hybrid phase can provide some unique opportunities, but it can also provide some unique challenges as well. And so the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, if you're 65 or older, it actually adds an additional $6,000 for anybody that's 65 or older as a standard deduction. And so that helps, but it does phase out at $150,000. And so if your Social Security is $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year, and your spouse makes $130,000 a year, that phased that out just like that. So there's a lot of things that you want to consider before you just make that, I'll call it a knee-jerk reaction, but that reaction to, I just want to go start drawing Social Security because I want that paycheck.
Right, which a lot of folks have that reaction.
Yeah.
We get it, right?
And it's a challenge, yeah.
It is. Well, if somebody's watching right now, or especially for our married couples, and they're going, oh, wow, okay, there's a lot to this. I need help putting this all together. What would you say to them?
I'd say planning for retirement is a lot like any other new undertaking that you're going into for the first time. Let's say that you're looking to buy or build a new house and you want to live out of town on an acreage, and you don't really know all the rules until you start digging into it and you start realizing you have to ask questions. Is there a perk test that's been done? How does this retain water? Can I have a walkout basement? Is the runoff going to be a problem? How deep is water? Is there electricity at the road? Or do I have to pay a bunch of money to $80,000, $90,000 to drill a well? There's a lot of different things to consider when it comes to just a one-time event like building a house. Retirement, ideally, it's a one-time event in that you retire one time, but it's not a set it and forget it. It's something that you have to work on every day because rules change, laws change. Just in the last few years, we have several different pieces of legislation that's had a very significant impact on your retirement. Now's the time to get a second set of eyes. You can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first opinion, but the way you can get that with no cost, no obligation, no pressure, just clarity, is by calling the number on your screen today.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. That number to call is 866-256-7778. Or again, if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to tackle the decisions that you have to make once both of you do go ahead and retire. Stay with us to learn how to navigate that chapter of your lives right after this.
Have you ever considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, and even your credit card rates because it could help keep more of your money each month. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Give us a call today and schedule a complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. Thank you for watching and being a part of today's important conversation where we are discussing how to navigate when one spouse goes ahead and retires and the other one's still working. But what we want to talk about now is what happens when both of you are unemployed. As we said jokingly earlier, you want to be unemployed when you're retired, right?
Voluntary unemployment, right?
We only want you going back to work if you want to go back to work, not because you have to. But with this, now no paycheck is coming in. You have to figure out how to navigate this transition well. So once both spouses are retired, how should couples think about managing their two portfolios that they've been accumulating and saving in? Because, probably there's different amounts in there, might have different risk tolerances. God often has a sense of humor, puts one saver and a spender together in a married relationship, right? So talk about some of the things that folks need to be aware of in navigating that transition.
There's a reason why in our practice we call it a household and not account A and account B, right? This is one household. Right? These are the assets of the household because there's times where like one spouse didn't work outside the home much. And so maybe they don't have a lot of savings in their name. Maybe they didn't know about the spousal IRA I just shared with our audience. And so they weren't doing that. And so unfortunately what can happen if you have that kind of segmented mindset is planning can become fragmented, okay, instead of coordinated. Our job is to make sure that everything is coordinated from all the different interconnected areas that impact you financially. And so if one spouse is rowing in this direction and the other one's rowing in this direction, it can cause challenges, right, that are unnecessary. You can create a problem where problems don't actually exist. And so the beautiful thing about the way we do the Retirement Compass is we design it so both spouses, the spender saver, they can both get what they want. Those don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can both have that in one balanced, comprehensive approach to retirement. You have to make sure that you're doing it in allocations that are comfortable with both. Okay, we're going to give you, here's your growth bucket over here, here's your safety bucket, and then here's your growth without risk bucket. You can do all of that in one type of comprehensive approach to retirement.
So I know we have a couple of graphics that you guys want to highlight on this conversation, and one has to do with something known as the sequence of returns risk, right?
Yeah, so if you want to pull up the first sequence return slide, the challenge that people have with when they think about retiring, they look at, okay, I can see this returns, I can look at the returns from 2000 through 2023, and I can see, okay, I've got, if I started with $1 million, I should have about $3 million by the end of 2025, right? Or 2023, I'm sorry. That sounds great, but if I start taking withdrawals or if I start taking distributions, now in our example on the next slide, we're taking a $50,000 a year distribution.
Very normal, right?
And we're showing this, it's the same rates of return. So on the left side, you can see the returns from 2000 through 2023. And you can see that on the left side, we actually run out of money fairly early.
By 2018.
We don't even make it to 2023.
Right.
And so that's just taking a $50,000 distribution. The average rate of return matches exactly between both slides. We just use the S&P 500 to make this slide, and it's showing that if we flip the returns around, so all we did is we took 2023 first on the slide on the right and went through 2000. It's the exact same returns. So one would argue you averaged the same rate of return, but because those years, those early years, if you look at the very beginning of the left slide, 2000, 2001, 2002, we had 3 negative years in a row.
Right.
So not only did we erode our account because we're pulling out $50,000 a year, but we also had significant losses, and we were actually making those losses. We were actually making them effective because we're taking that $50,000 out. Now that money can't grow and recover.
Right,
and
you're
so
locking in that loss
we're
once you
locking
make
in
the
the loss,
withdrawal.
exactly. And
Right.
then so on the right, we are still taking the same distribution, but we didn't have those losses in those first 5 years of retirement. You had one year that was a loss. And so that wasn't as significant of an impact, and the money had time to recover.
Right.
So sequence of return risk is something that a lot of people don't talk about or think about very often.
Well, and this is why you never suggest that someone has all of their retirement savings in one type of bucket. So we got to talk about the 3 buckets, which I know you have this conversation with folks a lot.
Yeah. I actually had somebody bring the buckets in to one of the meetings after they watched this show.
That's so cool.
That's how serious we are about our buckets. So
Yes.
we'll pull it up on the screen too for you to see. Like, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And the key is making sure that you have the right amount in each of these buckets. And it's different for everybody. But you see from left to right, you see low to moderate risk, safe and secure. I'm going to rephrase these a little bit. I'm like safety on the left, income/growth without risk in the middle, and then growth with risk on the right. Here's the problem we find, Kristen. When people come in, Jeremy, what percentage do you think is in the bucket on the right?
Pretty much all of it.
Pretty much all of it,
Yep.
right? And that's fine when you're in the accumulation phase, but once you enter that decumulation phase, what Jeremy just showed you wasn't opinion, okay? It wasn't how he felt, it was math, right? There's a 4-letter word we can use that will tell you whether or not this is gonna be successful, and it's MATH. So when we think about planning, we think about how do we make sure that this is coordinated across all these different areas, ensuring that you have the right amount in each bucket. And the reality is most people they've never done a test to find out. So what we invite folks to do that are watching today, if you want to see what your numbers look like, if you want to see where you stand when it comes to the buckets, are you taking too much risk, too little? Just give us a call at the number on your screen, and you're going to meet with one of our experienced advisors. And worst case scenario, when you leave our office, you're going to know that your plan's been tested, and you'll know whether or not it's designed to work properly, coordinated with you and your spouse, regardless of when the two of you decide to retire.
Very well said. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. So much goes into this, and I'm excited for more couples to be able to come in and have you assess their situation. So again, we invite you to reach out. 866-256-7778 is the number to call. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on the Retirement Compass.